Congratulations! You've just landed a job at Fetch, the massive e-commerce company where you're ready to sort, pack, and ship items as fast as you can. Sure, the hours are long, the wages are low, and the bathroom breaks are few and far between. But the work is exciting and fast-paced, and you're an optimistic cartoon dog. So how bad could it be? Welcome to the Playdate podcast, bringing you stories from game developers, designers, and the team behind Playdate, the little yellow game console with a crank. I'm Krista Mergen. Today I'm talking with Nick Manier and Arthur Hamer, the creators of Pack Pup, a narrative match-3 puzzle game full of story-inspired challenges and intensifying stakes as you navigate life as a new warehouse employee. Slight spoiler alert, we talk about the overall concept, mechanics, and modes of the game, a few of the specific puzzle challenges in the game, and one easy-to-find Easter egg. But I've tried to avoid spoilers to the main storyline. Okay, let's meet the team and find out who would put an adorable dog to work in a giant e-commerce warehouse.
Hi, I'm Nick Manier. I am the designer of Pack Pup, and I did also programming, a bit of story with Arthur, who was the artist basically behind the project.
My name is Arthur Hamer. I am the artist and writer, I guess, of the story for Pack Pup. Nick did all the coding. He's the genius. I just did the artwork and the pictures and the animation.
Just.
Pack Pup is a match-3 game, I would say, but it's a bit trickier because the match you are doing stay on the board. So as you match tiles, it gets trickier and trickier to find more match.
If you're not familiar with the term match-3 game, it's a genre that includes games like Candy Crush or Bejeweled. Modern match-3 games evolved from earlier tile-based games like Chain Shot and Tetris. There's a ton of variation across the genre, and even a lot of variations in gameplay within Pack Pup itself. But with match-3 games in general, you're moving randomly generated tiles around on a grid, trying to align them in such a way that they're cleared from the board. You're constantly creating order from chaos, essentially.
It's a very lightweight puzzle game, I think I'd call it. We weren't trying to make it super complicated. We're not trying to make the Dark Souls of puzzle games. It's just it's fun, it's quick. You can play it for 5 minutes or you can play it for half an hour, whatever you want. And it's a game where you're a little pup, you work in a big kind of shipping factory, and you have to match all the products that are coming in and box them up and send them out to keep up the demand for this huge, horrible factory that you work in. And as you play through the levels of the game, you unlock the comics and you'll read the story about this little pup who's trying to find a job and then what it's like when he starts working at the big factory.
Basically, you are like a puppy and you just ship a lot of packages, like if you're in a warehouse, let's say.
Aw, poor pup. So where did this idea to put a cute dog into a warehouse come from, and how did Nick and Arthur end up making it for the Playdate?
So me and Nick have made a few games together over the years. We basically got together through the Game Maker's Toolkit Game Jam, which is a huge YouTube channel, if you know it, GMTK Game Jam. It's one of the biggest game jams on itch.io. This British guy runs this YouTube channel and he set up Game Jam and it's always great. There's thousands of people make games for it every year. But yeah, through his YouTube channel's Discord, me and Nick got together. Nick was doing the coding. I was offering artwork services. We made, I think, 3 games over the years, just over the course of a weekend. The Game Jam would only last a weekend. So we'd make really small little games. And the second last one we made was a game called Fish, which was a match-3 game. The idea was that you were working in a fish processing plant. Fish were coming in from the sea and you had to sort all the fish. And when you matched 3, they would freeze into ice blocks. And then you would ship all the ice blocks into a truck. But it was all really gruesome stuff, like penguin heads and old fish heads and weird dead sea creatures and stuff. But it was this weird little match 3 game and it was really fun. And then about the time we made that, you guys announced the Playdate. And we were oh my God, this is really exciting. Have you seen this thing? Me and Nick were talking about it. We're oh, great. Look at this amazing new console. Wouldn't it be so cool if we made a game for it?
When it was announced, I fell immediately in love with the console. To the point of I contacted multiple people on internet to try to figure out how, not just how do I get one, but how do I make one also? So I contacted Dave.
Dave Hayden is an engineer at Panic. He created the first prototypes of Playdate and has been integral to its development from the very beginning.
And he was oh, this is the various parts you can use. And so I built my own Playdate with an NES controller to make one. So that was pretty cool. I never did electronic before, but I was really motivated to get one. So I have my own fake playdate. Yeah.
I love this. And if you want to check it out, I put some links to Nick's tweets about his process in the show notes.
So when I got the SDK of the console, I immediately wanted to make a game, but I didn't know when the console will be released. So it could be in 1 month, it could be in 1 year, or even more. So we did a small project with Arthur, and we wanted something small that we can do in short amount of time.
Nick just said, "Oh well, let's pitch them an idea. Let's see what we can do." So he started making like a playdate version of this fish game that we'd made, and because of that, and then like as we kind of translated it to black and white, we realized like, okay, none of this is going to work. We're going to have to redo it all. So that's where we kind of like that was like the starting point for the game.
The theme was totally different. It was about like packing frozen fish that we were shipping. And so we were like looking at maybe a different theme, and we looked, and putting items in boxes kind of fit quite the bill. So this is why we started using the SDK to make Pack Pup as a small game, and we started to share it on the forum, and the response was really good. So this is how we picked it.
Yeah, we just kind of alighted on the idea of like, okay, you're like shipping packages. I guess it's like a holdover from the fish thing, where it was like, you know, you're in a factory and you're like processing stuff. I like the idea of like trucks taking things away or something. So I kind of set it in like some sort of big factory, like a fast-paced work environment. And it might have something to do with like my day job. When I'm not being an artist, I work for a company that sells their products on Amazon, and I have to deal with Amazon like at my job. And I don't like Amazon at all. Like, I don't think they're a good company. I don't enjoy it. So maybe there's inherent dislike for that sort of big, massive business model that sort of came through in like the story I was making. So the story is like a thinly veiled allegory to Amazon. And yeah, and I don't want to spoil what happens in the story, but you know, it's not a good company to work for. And the pup finds that out.
We had the idea of the mechanic, but we didn't know for sure how to adapt it for the playdate. So we did a lot of prototype, a lot of variation of the same gameplay. And at some point we had so many ideas. So we were like, oh, we can do a story mode, and packing them in different levels with a story in between to merge everything together as a single game, basically.
In story mode, you get a variety of packing and shipping assignments from your capitalist overlords, and these mini-games are interspersed with comic book chapters that illustrate what the pup is going through in their new gig. The cartoon illustration style makes the gameplay fun and easy to decipher. Since you're grouping different items like sunglasses, soccer balls, and toilet paper together, and generally as quickly as possible, it's really important for each item to be distinctive and easily recognizable. And of course, the cartoon style works especially well for the comic sections. The panels are dynamic and fun. I figured Arthur was already well-versed in pixel art before he started working on Pack Pup, but
I've done very little pixel art before. It's not something I have ever like done on a job or anything. Like, obviously I've kind of dabbled in over the years. Being an artist and someone who likes video games, you always kind of try out a little pixel art somewhere. But mainly I don't work in pixel art. So it was a bit of a challenge. It was kind of exciting. And the fact that it is just one bit is like that's like a whole nother world. But what I found really exciting about the project and the game is that there are those limitations, these like huge limitations, like great big concrete walls coming down that say it's black and white only. These are the dimensions, like you only get this many pixels. And that is, for me as a designer, is really exciting because like once you have these rules, then you can start playing with it and coming up with something amazing. Once it's just black and white, you're like, right, I can't just have everything black and white. How are we going to get some grays in here? And you can use like dithering, 1 pixel on, 1 pixel off, like sort of patterns to kind of give the illusion of these like tones of gray.
yeah, you can think of dithering as similar to hatching and cross-hatching in other forms of art, like woodcut, engraving, or even just pencil drawing, where an artist creates parallel lines or lines that cross each other at angles, and the closer those lines or cross-hatches are together, the darker the shading is, and the further apart they are, the lighter it is. Techniques like hatching and dithering allow you to create a wide variety in tonality, so despite being limited to just black and white, you can actually have a whole range of values from light to dark. In addition to lines, a pixel-based dithering pattern can be anything from a dense checkerboard to a diffuse scattering of black pixels on a white background, or vice versa. And once you've created some patterns, you can do things like assign them to brushes in Photoshop.
I made loads of special brushes in Photoshop, which I used to sort of draw the comics and all the animations and add the tone to kind of give a bit more life to the images, to give them a bit of gray. And once I had all those different brushes, then it was just like, right, that's my paint palette. Now I can just go crazy. And I can add like shadows and shading and dramatic lighting behind the characters and all things like that. So yeah, those like limitations were really exciting for me as an artist. And usually my work is very colorful and like, bold. So it's quite exciting to do something new and different that's like at a totally different scale, really zoomed in. Every single pixel counts, So yeah, I loved it. It was amazing. Really fun.
The design is really cute. Arthur makes pixel art look easy. And in the comics, the juxtaposition of this sort of Orwellian monolith of capitalism with an adorable, naive, but optimistic cartoon dog is really striking. And it ends up underscoring the darkness of this kind of company and of worker exploitation in general.
Yeah, I don't know. I care about these things. It's what's in the news. It's what I read about. I'm concerned about the world. I want things to be better. I worry about these horrible things. And it kind of looms over everyone. So I am an illustrator by trade. I do like kids books and little animations and stuff for young audiences. And my style is just generally kind of quite cutesy and happy. So it's just like how I ended up translating it. That's my style. I can't really change it. I just draw cute things. But yeah, I think it's nice that there's like that juxtaposition, because it's like you can read into it if you want, or you can just play a cute game about a little puppy matching things together.
In previous jams we did also with him, I wanted to explore maybe some darker stuff, and it was more like being very humorous. But when we nailed the theme of like warehouse and like packing in the warehouse, it was like, oh, there is something darker to it to explain. It's still a funny game, like the tone is quite funny, but yeah, it's like there is some dark condition. And it's funny during the development and afterwards, like all the news about like crying booths and having this type of reflection on the work condition and Amazon was interesting. And it was kind of interesting to see how it reflected in the game, basically.
Yeah, working for Fetch, the fictional e-commerce giant, becomes increasingly intense as you get assignments like picking as many bananas as possible or clearing the bottom row as fast as you can before items get trashed and their value is docked from your pay. The various minigame modes tie in really well with the rest of the story as a whole, as suspense builds and the stakes keep rising for the pup.
A lot of that is Nick. I will have to concede that he is like the genius when it comes to the game design. But we did brainstorm a lot of it together. As we were making it, we ended up making like so many different modes to the game. Like there's like a chill mode, there's like a danger zone mode or something with bombs that come down. There's like a time attack mode where you've got only a certain amount of time. So we were like really having fun, like coming up with all these different parameters for how to play the game. And so the story mode kind of was like a showcase for all those different features. It's like there's all these different levels where like the different little parameters come in. And as we were doing that, the story is kind of like developing as well. And I was kind of thinking of the story, and then I was kind of getting ideas for levels at the same time. And I would pitch that to Nick and say, what if we did this sort of level where these things happen, and then he would say, no, that's ridiculous. That wouldn't work. Oh, this is so complicated. So it's like a bit of a back and forth like that. But a lot of the kind of story ideas I would have would then inform like one of the levels that we would do. And it's really cool to be able to see that in the final game where like, there's like a level that you play, and then that then feeds into the next page of the comic and helps to tell the story. So yeah, that's really, really exciting for me as an artist to like see that like come together.
One awesome and kind of surprising thing about the comics is how you interact with them to read them.
When we thought about the game for the playdate, we didn't got the console yet. We just had the SDK. And so the crank was super interesting, but we didn't know how it felt, how to leverage gameplay with the crank. So we were, okay, like the main gameplay should be without the crank because we know about that. But let's try to add stuff with the crank, and it's more on the side.
Obviously, when you see the crank, it's like we've got to use this. This is the biggest thing. It's so cool. Everyone wants to like try the crank. When I show it to people, they're like, "Oh, cool! What is this thing?" That's like, it's so exciting. So when Nick broke the news to me that we weren't going to be making a fishing game, obviously I was very sad, because that's obviously the game everyone wants to have on the playdate.
Everybody comes up with fishing.
But after I got over that, it was like, right, how are we going to use the crank in the game? And because I knew I wanted to have these comics in it, and because of the screen, it's only a very small screen. So I was like, how can we get a bigger image onto the small screen? And I was thinking about, how do you see these images? How do you move between them, sort of thing? So the crank seemed like kind of the obvious thing. And it's that sort of manual input that, brings it closer to something like reading an actual comic in a newspaper or something, where you're like turning the page by hand or like running your finger up and down the page or something like that, rather than just like looking at a static image on a screen, which I feel like can be quite boring sometimes. So I feel like it makes it a bit more like vibrant and exciting, and you can like kind of feel it in your hand a bit more with the crank. Also, there's an Easter egg when you're playing the game. If you use the crank, you can pet the dog. We're trying to get onto the can you pet the pup in this video game Twitter account. That's what we're doing.
So yeah, we have the comic book, which is a nice interaction to have. Like the petting the dog is like something we had to do, and it's kind of a secret. And we have other secrets using the crank a bit everywhere in the game. So I'm excited to see if people can discover everything.
Yeah, turning the comic book pages is the main way that Pack Pup makes use of Playdate's crank, and I figured out during the tutorial that you can also use the crank to pet the dog. But there are some other crank-related surprises as well. And while building a game for a console before actually having a physical device to test it on sounds daunting, Nick said that the software development kit, or SDK, was actually really friendly, and the hard part was figuring out how to turn all of their ideas for different Match 3 game modes into one cohesive game that made sense with a storyline.
Working with the SDK was great. So I have already a bit of experience with Lua.
Lua is a scripting language that's considered kind of cleaner and less overwhelming than something like C, which is a classic lower-level procedural programming language. The free Playdate software development kit has APIs for both Lua and C, and you can switch between them in any given project too, depending on what you need. Anyway.
What I was the most surprised is like how clean and finished everything is, basically. It was super nicely documented. It was super clean. So like making the game was kind of the hard part, not understanding how to make the game like on the console. So that was very, very good. Basically, it was the main difficulties, like what is the end of the game? So we had actually a lot of ideas of all the various challenging, and we had to sort out what was the best one. So we had more than expected, but we didn't know where the story would go. Yeah. So that was the main challenge.
But Nick and Arthur did manage to find a satisfying end to the game while keeping the gameplay feeling fresh and exciting. And they did it all while working remotely in different countries.
So yeah, like he's living in UK and me, I live in Germany. So we work remotely, and it was very, very smooth because we had something like just weekly meetings of like what's going on, what can we add to the game, having some discussion. And that was like super smooth. So that was really nice.
I'm sure me and Nick will work together in the future. You know, he's a great guy. It's great to work with him.
And we work with Logan, Gabriel, like for the music. And it was like a brief discussion of like, can he make the music for the game? And you agree for it. And I gave him some reference, the tone of the game, what it would be. And he gave us a track that was, amazing, because we didn't want the game to be so big. So we wanted to have mainly one track. And something that is very challenging is something you don't get tired of, that it's on repeat all the time. And it's super challenging to make a track like that. And he just nailed it. I'm still not sick of the music, even if I'm listening to it all the time. He did amazing work with the music. So yeah, like that was really nice for the game.
Yeah, the music works well in the game, and it's interesting and varied enough that I honestly don't even notice when it loops most of the time. So how are Arthur and Nick feeling now that the game is about to be in people's hands?
It's just really cool. It was such a fun project. I loved it. And I'm like so excited. It's like a dream come true that I have a video game that I've made. People would always say to me, "Oh, Arthur, you love video games so much. Why don't you go and work in video games?" And I would think, "Oh, I can't do that. It's like way too complicated. I don't know anything about coding." But these days I have to pinch myself sometimes and remind myself like, no, you made a video game. It's coming out. People are going to play your game. Everyone's going to get to play it. So it's really exciting for me. It's like, I love it so much. It's a dream come true.
I would just simply hope that they have fun because it's the main goal of the game. And I hope some people will get hooked to it, basically, that the gameplay is interesting enough so that it's not just that they finish the story mode, but they keep playing the game. I always picture people like waiting in line to get their coffee, and they just take the play dates, switch on, and play the game immediately.
I'm excited to play season 1 when all the games drop and when everything comes out, because I can't wait to see what everyone else has done with it. And I'm really excited to like get some crazy new ideas and then think of something new to do. I would love to make another game for the Playdate. It would be an absolute dream come true. And I need to start learning how to make one myself just from scratch, all on my own.
Well, I would love to play more games by Arthur and Nick, because Pack Pup is a lot of fun and something that's really easy to just pick up and play casually for a few minutes here and there, even after finishing the story mode. You can see more of their work and find them on Twitter via the links in the show notes. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have a great time working your way through the warehouse in Pack Pup.
Thank you so much.
That was a pleasure. Thank you. Bye.
The Playdate podcast was written, produced, and edited by me, Krista Mergen. Cable Sasser and Simon Panrucker composed the theme song. Additional music was composed by Logan Gabriel and comes from Pack Pup. Huge thanks to Tim Coulter and Asher Cabrera for wrangling the podcast feed and working on the website, as well as to Nevin Mergen, who created the podcast artwork and site design. And thanks, as always, to everyone at Panic. Playdate is shipping now and available for pre-order at play.date.
Before I was on like the game jams that I was on, I'd made some games through the like Idle Thumbs people, if you know that.
Of course, Panic goes way back with those folks.
And so it's like, there is that like lineage through my career of like Idle Thumbs, Firewatch, Ollie Moss, now Panic, and you guys. It's like, you know, it's all there. The blueprints are there.